Hong Kong is one of the most important economic and financial centers in the world. It is a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China and therefore enjoys a high degree of autonomy. Today, over 7 million people live in Hong Kong, and with a GDP of over $400 billion, Hong Kong is one of the top 20 international cities. What many people don't know, Hong Kong was British territory for almost a century. But how did this region come to be under British control in the first place? It all began with the Opium Wars. In the early 19th century, the British Empire had a growing interest in China's markets, particularly tea, silk, and porcelain. This led to them importing more and more goods from China, but hardly exporting any goods to it. So, to finance trade with the Middle Empire, the British began smuggling opium from India to China. This led to a massive opium crisis in China as millions of people became addicted. When the Chinese government tried to stop this harmful trade, the First Opium War broke out. The British had massive technological and military superiority, and after several defeats, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842. This treaty ended the war and laid the foundations for British control over Hong Kong. In this treaty, China ceded Hong Kong to Great Britain in perpetuity. Hong Kong, then still a small fishing village and now known as Hong Kong Islands, was soon to develop into a major trading city linking the empire with the Asian mainland. But that was just the beginning. The first was followed by the Second Opium War. And again, China had to make further concessions after its defeat. In the Treaty of Peking, signed in 1860, China also ceded the Kowloon Peninsula and Stonecutters Island to Britain in perpetuity, and the territories were incorporated directly into the colony of Hong Kong, extending the British's control over the region. Despite these losses, China was still a powerful nation, and there were limits to what Britain could achieve. While Hong Kong, including Kowloon and Stonecutters, were now under British rule, most of the surrounding land remained under Chinese control. However, the British realized that they needed more land to secure and expand their position in the long term. In 1898, a decisive agreement was finally reached. The British and Chinese signed the Peking Convention, in which China leased the so-called New Territories, a large area north of Kowloon, to Great Britain. However, this lease was fixed for 99 years. This was not a complete renunciation of the territory, but a temporary cession, after which the territory would theoretically revert to China. During the colonial era, under British administration, Hong Kong flourished, transforming from a simple port city into one of the world's most important financial centers. The British influence could be felt everywhere, in the administration, in the education system, and even in the architecture. But the population of Hong Kong was obviously largely Chinese, and the tensions between the city's Chinese roots and British rule were always palpable. So the question was, what would happen to Hong Kong when the 99-year lease expired? The new territories had become an integral part of the region, and without them, Hong Kong would not be able to survive. In the 1980s, therefore, intensive negotiations began between Great Britain and China to clarify its future. In 1984, both sides agreed in the Sino-British Declaration that Hong Kong would be returned to China in 1997. At the same time, it was assured that Hong Kong would retain extensive autonomy for at least 50 years after the handover, in accordance with the principle of one country, two systems. This meant that although Hong Kong would be part of China, it would retain its own legal system, currency, and a certain degree of political independence. On the 1st of July 1997, British rule in Hong Kong finally ended, and the city was officially handed over to China. But even though British rule is over, Hong Kong remains a place where Western and Chinese influences meet to this day. The city's complex history and its special autonomy arrangement continue to cause political tensions, both within Hong Kong and in relations between China and the West. A major source of tension is the national security law passed by the Chinese government in 2020. Which is intended as a means to combat insurgency and secession, and is seen by many as a direct threat to Hong Kong's democratic freedoms. How the future of this former colony will develop, therefore, remains uncertain. That's it for today. If you want to know why Cyprus is divided and why the southern part belongs to Europe and the northern part is only recognized by Turkey, I can recommend my video about it. Have fun watching and see you next time. Ciao.